Pitch Breakfast presents Pitch Battle. Give a very warm welcome to the founder of Pitch Breakfast. With us 5 years old now. 5 years, Mr. Vic Howie. So a big hand for Mr. Vic. Good evening, everybody. Hope you're going to have a good time. Is everybody having a good time so far? Yeah, that's pretty good. Can you do it again? Are you having fun yet? Let's get it going here. Now, tonight we are doing our standard pitch practice here. It's 5 minutes from the pitchers with slides and then 10 minutes of feedback from our three great panelists here. Tonight we have criteria that we're going to be following for the pitch battle. One, first is the idea or the feasibility, the team's ability to execute, the revenue model, very important, investability, and the presentation that they give to you tonight. So those are the criteria that the judges will be working with to have someone become the winner at the end of the evening and have that beautiful trophy right there. All right, so tonight, guys, I'm gonna tell you what, there's three really good looking faces up there. In preparation last night for being ready today, I actually, and I'm embarrassed to say this, I watched 2 episodes of Shark Tank. That is maybe the second worst TV show and advice that's given. These guys are going to be giving it to them. I hope you're going to pick up what they're putting down. These are the guys you need to be listening to. Everything we do at Pitch Breakfast has an educational component to it, and what you're going to hear tonight with this feedback that they give and what our pitchers are doing here, it will give you a great education into how to make this thing happen for a startup. So first off, Mac Lackey, we're so happy to have you with us tonight. Thank you, Mac. Chris Langford, thank you for being with us again. And Greg Brown, ever there. So thank you, Greg. We really appreciate that. Okay, are you ready to go? All right, first up tonight is Tim Griffin with Cloosiv. Tim, come on up.
All right, that blue is really shining through. Cool, I'm ready. Yeah. All right. Well, hi everyone. My name is Tim Griffin. I am the founder and CEO of Cloosiv. We are a merchant-agnostic platform that eliminates the need for consumers to download thousands of apps just to go shopping by instead using a single app to make purchases and earn savings regardless of what they're buying or really who they're buying it from. The team is comprised of myself and James Burkhardt. My background is in management consulting, primarily within retail point-of-sale strategy and behavioral adoption. James's background is in web and mobile app development, and he has extensive experience building payment solutions that integrate directly into legacy point-of-sale systems, which is critical for our product. We're also fortunate to have a seasoned executive advisory panel with folks who have experience with business strategy, marketing, and point-of-sale technology. The problem that we're ultimately solving for is really twofold. First and foremost, it's likely surprising to many of you that Americans actually wait in line for over 37 billion hours per year. That's 114 hours per person wasted inside of a queue, adding no value to your personal life. At the height of Amazon's takeover of commerce and the introduction of really simplified transaction experiences, brands felt the need to compete with them by reducing that number, reducing the line itself inside of their physical environments, and they did so by creating and building their own white label branded solutions that now saturate the over 100,000 available app markets that exist today, ultimately producing products that unfortunately not many people use because there isn't enough value associated with downloading an application if you only visit the merchant once in a while. Right? A good example is Starbucks, of one that's actually used quite often because you buy coffee every morning, right? There's a ton of value there. So the solution to this issue really is a product that bridges the divide between physical and digital commerce by introducing a unified marketplace, much like Amazon did with a digital marketplace. And that's what Cloosiv does. We enable the ability for a consumer to use a single application, a single platform, to make purchases regardless of where they are. In a quick serve environment like a coffee shop, customers can order ahead and pick up. In a retail store, they can scan and pay. In a restaurant, they can enter their check number to pay. And in a service-based business, they can pay for their service ahead of time, eliminating the bottleneck up front. The thread that ties all four of these types of verticals together is the transaction, the ability to make a purchase with a single application. Our product ultimately delivers the ability to eliminate queues altogether. It's an antiquated process. I'm not quite sure why it still exists in 2018, but we're on a mission to eliminate that line altogether, save consumers money by distributing rewards to them across all of the merchant types, and ultimately allowing them to discover new options across their local community that they may otherwise not have known existed. But the product vision is much broader than that. In addition to things like rewards, gamification, and social integration, I'm really excited about what we'll be able to do with a tailored marketing engine. Using inventory level information, we'll be able to segment consumer bases based on your own purchase history and make advertising more personal to you rather than a simple web search history or Alexa creepily eavesdropping on your conversations about a trip this weekend, right? Our business model is pretty straightforward. It's a standard software as a service where we charge our merchants per month per location, depending on their vertical and the number of total locations that fit within their brand. We also have supplemental revenue streams that will exist as our product matures, like in-app advertising, that marketing engine I just discussed, and spend planning I think could be a pretty great feature to roll out that we could monetize in the future. Our total market is pretty broad. We have a total addressable market of about 2.7 million merchant locations in the United States. We're actually already live with 1% of the merchant locations here in Charlotte, North Carolina, and have commitments from a total of 1.5%. So we're well on our way to hitting our targets as we expand. Our vertical dynamic certainly introduces a large competitive theme across all four of them, but there is no single app that exists that unifies the payment experience across all four verticals. But we do compete for merchant revenue and user attention from companies like this listed here. MishiPay and Skip are two startups, but you're probably familiar with ChowNow and Caviar and those types of food delivery services. As I mentioned, we're live in 1% of the Charlotte, North Carolina market. You'll likely recognize a few of the brands up here. We have several coffee shops, retail stores that have started to accept Cloosiv and enable that payment experience inside of their locations. We're also fortunate to have established partnerships with some pretty significant point-of-sale companies that lead the way and understand our vision for ubiquitous commerce. In the first 65 days since we've launched, we've added about 600 new users to our platform and have processed over 500 transactions. That's in addition to the beta events that we hosted last year, and have processed about 5,000 in transaction volume. Our projected revenue, we have revenue on the books to begin in June of 2018 this year to start accruing our SaaS model revenue from merchants before we expand in 2019 to accrue our data revenue and marketing. And then I'll just speed through the seed round to end this because I'm being cut off. We'll be raising a seed round in Q2.
Is that 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
You gotta talk faster. No, just kidding. So one of the biggest things that was going through my mind is for a merchant to adopt your product, it seems like they're gonna want kind of critical mass. They're gonna want a lot of consumers, right? So if I'm gonna adopt your app, I need you to prove that you have thousands of customers wanting it. So how do you deal with that chicken and egg?
Yeah, so our scale model is spot on to that point, right? It's a chicken and egg market, two-sided. So what we've done is built out a density-driven approach, right? So focusing on highly dense metropolitan areas with merchants that will adopt a product like us at the local mom and pop level, right? And specifically, we've fallen backwards into this, but it makes perfect sense. We start with coffee shops because it's an item that you buy once a day, twice a day, whatever it may be, to get user traction within that market onto the application. And then you start to see users carry over into our other merchant locations. We've several use cases where they've discovered retailers because they were buying coffee every morning on Cloosiv.
So we've had a bunch of discussions in the past. I think one of the things, as I think about your core customers, this idea of how do you democratize the experience of national chains for local retailers? So the coffee shop is great. Like, you're never getting Starbucks on your platform, but how do you recreate the Starbucks experience for someone else? So, I mean, one of the things I've always we've had this discussion about is like, can you actually create a value proposition for a national retailer? Because in theory, you're sort of promoting this idea of shopping around, and we all have our own loyalty platforms and things of that nature. So do you really think Cloosiv has an opportunity, and what is that flipping point where you can make a value proposition to a national retailer beyond the local?
You know, we're having actually some very interesting conversations to date, and we actually spoke a few months ago back at NRF, right, and having an opportunity to meet with brands like Adidas and have that conversation very recently. And this may be a bad example because they are being more innovative, but Walmart and we had a conversation with us, specifically their Jet.com acquisition and where that could fit in. But those companies have expressed the exact same feedback that if you build it, we will come mentality. So if we scale appropriately through the local community to the mid-markets and the specialty retailers, at that point we will have built a platform that exists with a significant amount of users where it's really forcing their hand, right? That there are so many users on this application and they expect this in-store experience because of it, that there's no other option.
Advice would be focus on the local retailers by recreating national brand experiences, and then monetize the data from that to national retailers, much like a Cartalytics or someone does. So instead of transaction data, you have actual data of what they do in their day-to-day life. You may never get someone like Lowe's or someone else on your platform because we can do mobile payout, seamless checkout, all those other things. But I think we would potentially buy the data of what do people do in their local communities, and then the sort of reciprocity would be, how do I create a mobile experience at scale?
The other thing I'd point out there is I skipped over that point because of Facebook, but absolutely, packaging and monetizing the data is a huge aspect of our revenue stream, our projected revenue stream, and that's cross-industry, right? They're outside of retail, right? There's use for it in public services and healthcare and financial services that would potentially buy this data.
You know, I'd like to go back and explore a little more of the point that Max started with, which is you've got this you need merchants and you need consumers. The platform isn't valuable to merchants without consumers, and it's not valuable to consumers without merchants. Which side are you building first? Which side are you targeting first, and why? And then I'm interested in knowing how you're doing that in Charlotte, and does that method scale?
Yeah, so we started with merchants in Charlotte. That doesn't mean that's what we'll do everywhere, right? And the broader vision of this is to create a turnkey product, much like Square did, where it's simply downloading an app for the merchant, and it's that easy. That's the hopeful direction of the company. How we interacted with them is quite literally pounding the pavement and having conversations. It's far easier to walk into a local mom and pop store and find the owner there, right, than it would be to walk into Lowe's and find the CEO. So that's really been our approach within this market, is to first and foremost have that personal touch and conversation about what we're looking to achieve. From a scalability perspective, again, if it's turnkey and there's a solution that's been built with a market underneath it, then there's the opportunity to expand based on that reputation alone as we move carefully throughout the state, throughout the Southeast and broader, right? We get requests randomly from places like Sebring, Florida, and Montana for merchants to sign up. And we need to be density driven in that we need to capture that information, but we can't let them onto the platform yet because there aren't enough merchants around them that accept it for it to be worthwhile to spend any effort on marketing to users that we need to attract to the application. So it really is sort of, it's a balancing act between both sides of the market.
So I'm guessing, and I haven't seen any of the numbers on this, I'm guessing that you have to have pretty good penetration in geographies beyond Charlotte to have an interesting exit for anybody. So how many, what do you think the understanding that you're targeting, I'm going to call it mom and pop, and that's a little derisive, but I don't have a better term at the moment. So if you're targeting mom and pops, how many, what sort of population base do you need to have? If there are 2 million people in Charlotte and Charlotte's not big enough, do you need to cover 20 million? Do you need to cover 200 million? What do you need to cover to build enough value to create a 10x opportunity for people who invest in
Yeah. From a user-based perspective or from a merchant look? Okay. For an exit, it would be a matter of owning 15 to 25, in my opinion, the broader markets. But it's difficult to weigh in the sense that Atlanta alone differs so drastically from a city like Charlotte, right? And that's our next biggest target, at least within the vicinity of that, or Washington, D.C., right? So it depends on density, right, and how many merchants sign up for us in order to project any sort of exit, I suppose, or any revenue associated with that. So that's why we remain focused on what can we tangibly achieve by 2020, which is Asheville, Raleigh, Winston-Salem, and Atlanta, right? That's our target right now in order to grow accordingly and achieve 2,000 merchant locations within that span.
I was going to say, so, just thinking about my day literally today, I've been to 2 different, not just coffees, and to a Central Coffee, and then here. Yeah, I do like coffee. And the merchant hasn't, I use Square, of course, at Not Just Coffee, but I don't have there was no promotion to me as a consumer of Not Just Coffee for your app. And so getting the merchant to be not only an advocate, but a cheerleader and sort of pushing the product so that I understand as a consumer the value proposition. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's important. Today I was in Packard in South End.
There should be advertisements in Packard, so I'm going to go check that out. That's the only location currently accepting it for Not Just Coffee. But to your point, it's funny because they've actually been the largest proponent. If I just sit there and listen, they're excited about it, right? Whereas I do have merchants who we haven't forced their hand, right? We haven't said, okay, we're going to give this to you for free, but we need you to put all this promotion up because we didn't want to alter the aesthetic, and we know they're taking some sort of risk, whatever that may be. But to your point, the best thing to do is build a product that they get excited about, and Not Just Coffee is one of those merchants who gets really excited because they have a line out the door at Packard, right? And this helps to alleviate that line by introducing a very simple workflow that already exists. So it's just going to be a matter of weighing from a local perspective what we demand of them at such a low price point.
I think just kind of the last point is, I think as you think about scaling both sides of the market, you need to understand what the value, authentic value. I think I get this idea of providing national experience to a local business. I think we need to think about who the power user of someone like this is. And I actually think the opportunity is helping people discover local businesses. So if you think about neighborhoods like Noda that have propensity to shop local, and then you extrapolate that to what I call the granola markets, like, Austin, Boulder, Portland, places where there's propensity to shop local. I think building this density and this discovery engine for hyper-local commerce that then also powers the sort of seamless experience.
Absolutely, yeah. You got to tap into the emotional side of it as well for the consumer. Yeah, excellent.
Fun.
We have a